Welcome to Fishing for Bees. This is my YouTube channel on swarm catching and beekeeping. All our colonies are a standalone catch. We've never split a colony, never purchased bees, never purchased a queen, and I'm not anti any of that. We just haven't had to. Swarm catches keep providing us with bees that supersede our losses in the winter, and in the past we've had so many bees coming out of spring that I've given away 10 frame colonies. So if any of that interests you, please like and subscribe. Today we're just going to do a quick video on how we started out extracting honey and give you some ideas on some tools that you might be interested in, that you might need, and some tools that you might not be interested in. So this video is going to be more for somebody that's starting out, but I would appreciate the people that have been in beekeeping for a while and can go back and remember when they first started out, before they had an extractor, before they had an uncapping tank, before they had a bottling tank and all the stuff that came with it. If you could comment stuff that I'm missing, I'd really appreciate it, and I think it would help the new beekeeper out. So to you people out there that have the experience, the experts in beekeeping, please comment. Please help me to get some ideas out to the new beekeepers so that we can help them be successful like we were when we started out. So we did start out with a 2-frame hand crank extractor from Maxent. So I'm not going to go into the extraction because I want you to know that there's a lot of possibilities that you can start out with and not purchase an extractor. We cash flowed everything in this business. We never went out and overextended ourselves. As the profits came in with the honey that we sold and the candles and lip balm, we simply poured that back in, and now we do have a motorized extractor and uncapping tank, but I'm not going to go into that. Again, this is about you starting out and some options that you have to keep the expenses down. And maybe you don't even sell your honey. Maybe you're just doing it for yourself. Maybe you just have a super or two that you need to extract. And honestly, you don't need to purchase an extractor for just a couple honey supers. So one of the musts that you need is a good knife. I have never used a heated knife. I have seen good and bad about them, so I really don't think that I am even interested in a heating knife. Again, I like to keep the expenses down. Obviously, I'm catching free bees. I'm not into spending a bunch of money for honey extraction. So just a nice knife for uncapping your frames. We purchase most of this stuff on Amazon, so this is a must. Back up a little bit before you extract. These are not very expensive. These refractometers, you can get them on Amazon, 20 bucks. Test before you extract. It's much easier to dry your honey in the frames than it is in a 5-gallon bucket. It's much easier to dry in a 5-gallon bucket, but still problematic than it is to try and dry after you've already bottled. Test before you bottle. Again, there's plenty of videos out there on how to do this stuff. I'm not going to go into details on how to test, but make sure you test. The roller to puncture the cappings, personally not a fan. We've tried this on numerous occasions, all the way from not uncapping and using it, or just trying to hit the spots that the blade for whatever reason didn't hit. This tears up the comb pretty bad, and what happens is it starts to get gunked up really quick, and then these do not puncture the cells as well. Personally, I'm not a fan. I don't think we even used it on our last extraction, so you can try it. I think some people are fans of it. Personally, I'm not a fan, so this is a no-go for me. This one, my wife, Elena, has gotten really good at. This one is crucial for getting those areas, again, that the knife didn't get. She's gotten this down because you're just going to feather the frame and you're just going to take the caps off. And I would say that this is definitely a must, because you are going to have those frames that for whatever reason the knife hasn't hit the cells and they're capped, and you need to perforate or pull the wax capping off, or you're not going to get the honey out. You're going to go and spin it or whatever, and the honey's not going to come out of those cells, and then you're going to have to address it later or just feed it back to the bees. So this was definitely a good purchase. We're really happy with it, and Elena has really gotten really good at it. These mesh bags, mesh screens, These are the Little Giant brand. These are food grade. I know a lot of people say just go to Lowe's and grab the paint strainer. I've never done it myself, but I'm not sure that the paint strainer mentions anything about being food grade. I don't like to work under the assumption that something is safe for human consumption. I want to see it printed on the label that it's safe for human consumption. So these are the Little Giant brand. These are what you use. These are safe for human consumption. Also, if you didn't want to use the Little Giant brand, this is simply a cheesecloth. So there's a lot of food grade stuff available to you that doesn't have the name honey on it that you might be able to get it cheaper, cheesecloth and stuff like that. So this is a must, especially if you're going to do a crush and strain. So basically this is going to go into your bucket. I do put a bungee cord on here to make sure this doesn't fall into the bucket. When you start adding wax cappings and honey, this is quickly going to slip in. And what you're trying to do is keep it high enough that it actually drips the honey down in the bucket, and then you're able to remove it. Again, all this stuff is readily available on Amazon. I'm probably not going to put links for it. If you ask, I can certainly help you out. But I believe the majority of this stuff comes from all the same manufacturer. It's just sold by 50 different people on Amazon or 50 different companies. So this right here was our first way of uncapping the frame. So it just simply rests on your 5-gallon bucket. The nice thing about this is it pinches tight and again holds your bag so that it doesn't slide in. You still got a problem on this side of it sliding, but this side is pretty tight. So you put your frames in here. You can do deeps or mediums or even shallows, and you run your knife down it, you uncap it, and they fall in. So one of the things that we learned was that there's a fine line, because you don't want to cant your frame too much and drop your wax and your honey on the outside. But if you do cant it a little bit and you run the blade down, you can get it to fold like a ribbon pretty nicely inside of here. So this is definitely a must if you don't have an extraction tank. There's certainly other things that you can do, but this was a very inexpensive purchase and it served us well for a long time. Again, we don't use it anymore, but I do keep it in case you're just doing a couple frames or something like that, or we just wanted to crush and strain instead of busting out with the extractor. This is certainly something I will keep around in case I need it in the future. Little Giant again, Honeygate. I've read some horrible reviews on Honeygates as far as ones that are not Little Giant, and I'm sure there's other brands that are very reputable, but I've read some other ones that people are not happy with, you know. So just be careful. Make sure you read the reviews. Not all Honeygates are the same. One thing that's consistent about them is none of them are great. You'll see in some of my other videos I talk about how we fill smaller jars and stuff like that. So this I purchased for $5. The bucket and the lid was purchased for about $7. So for about $13 we had a bucket with a lid and a Honeygate. These things are being sold with the Honeygate installed for a ridiculous price. You don't need to go that route if you're interested in saving some money. They come with directions. It's not that hard to drill the hole yourself. Just be mindful that on the inside there is a nut. So you need to leave enough room on the inside that your nut is not interfering with the bottom on the inside. Again, careful. There are measurements. Make sure you're drilling your hole high enough in the bucket so that you can still get that nut on. If you don't, you're drilling a hole in a bucket and you're wasting it. So Honeygate in a bucket for cheap bottling is a must. A bucket cradle. So we only have one filling bucket. You may have several 5-gallon buckets that you need to fill with. You don't need a Honeygate installed in each bucket. So when this bucket is down low, we put our bucket cradle on with another bucket, and then we let it drip dry inside of here. It does take time. You want all that honey out. We don't like to waste. And then we can remove this and put the lid on. Again, as I've mentioned in other videos, at that time, you need to let the honey settle. You need to let the air bubbles, the wax bits, and the particulates float to the top so that when you open this gate, you're getting clean, pure honey. None of that stuff that your customers don't want to see. The foam, the wax bits, there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine to consume, but especially if you're doing for sale to the public, you want to make sure that it's clean. I've never done it myself, but if I was crushing and straining with what I know now as far as how heavy these bags can get with the wax cappings, what I would do I would wax cap in a bucket, and then in a separate bucket without this, just the screen, I would spatula the honey and the comb into that bucket and let that one drip and let this one drip. You got two buckets going simultaneously, but if you put your wax cappings in this bucket and then you spatula, there's videos on it, I'm not going to go into it, spatula all that honey, which weighs a lot, and all those wax cappings into the same bucket. This cheesecloth, this bag, whatever system you're using, is going to quickly fall into the bottom of the bucket, and if it's not elevated above the honey line, it's not dripping. If it's in the honey, you're not going to get the honey to come out of that bag, right? It's just going to all rise past the bag and be mixed into the wax capping. Also, honey's good at flowing out of wax cappings, but if you start to stack too many wax cappings on top of each other and expect that honey to find its way through the cheesecloth, it's simply not going to. So again, I would use a 2-bucket system for crushing and straining. This particular product here is a must. Again, there's so many sellers of them. I think they all come from the same factories. I will say, be careful with these. Elena sliced her finger open one time on one of these where they're stamped together, and this one's even still got a sharp spot. The metal's not bent over very well, and it's very, very sharp. So she was washing it, sliced her finger open on the day of extraction. Not good. So be careful with these. They are not stamped the greatest, but as far as the function of them, they're wonderful. Again, I think they all come from the same factory, and there's just multiple sellers. So one of the things that we struggled with at the beginning, and a lot of you might be extracting in a garage or a barn or stuff like that, well, there's dust and there's particulates that are floating around. You have to be very careful of that stuff. We didn't like the open edges. You have to remember that anything that ends up in these buckets from the screen down is finished product, right? There's a lot of area here, and you know if you're extracting honey, bees are going to be interested. So just to keep the bees away, if you're doing it in an area that bees might be able to get into, we do it in our kitchen, but I understand that people do it in many other areas. So this was always a concern of ours, because beyond this point is the finished product. We went ahead and bought some extra lids. These lids are only a couple bucks at the time. It's the thinner lid. I measured this to a spare lid, took a rotary tool and cut this out, and now we're able to drop this in here very nicely, put this on the bucket with no void, right? So again, everything that ends up past this point is finished product, with no concerns of anything getting in there. This was one of the best things that we've done. It really made extraction a lot easier, and not any concerns at all of contamination into the finished product. So we're really, really happy with this. I don't understand why they don't make a screen that fits a 5-gallon bucket. I think some of the companies do, but the price that comes with that is not for me. I'm not going to spend what they're asking for a screen that fits a 5-gallon bucket perfectly when I can buy an extra lid for a couple bucks. And we've done this at both stations where we need a bucket at the end of them. So I have this system at my extractor, and I also have this system at the end of my uncapping tank. So wonderful. Very, very happy with it. So there's just a couple items that we've gone through. Again, if people have other suggestions or other items that they like, please comment. If you have purchases that you've made that you think people could save their money and not make that purchase, that's even better, because it's all about saving money. Again, I'm pretty frugal. I don't buy bees, so I don't spend a lot of money on my equipment. Thanks for watching. I hope your bees are well.